Hello, this is Craphunter, and welcome to the Game Decider podcast. With me is Diplex,
Hello.
Lionheart,
Hey.
Decider,
Hello.
and finally Rexasaur.
Hey guys.
And I am your host, Craphunter. Now, first of all, gaming news. Company of Heroes 2 has just announced a closed beta beginning the 2nd of April. Second of all, we've got the Battlefield 4 announcement trailer and the 17-minute trailer, which isn't showing the gameplay. And finally, we'll have some discussions about some details on Rome 2.
Okay, so the Company of Heroes 2 beta was announced a few hours ago, and this is exclusively for pre-order customers, which the whole Company of Heroes community has been waiting for about 3 months now, with the problems with THQ and then Sega taking over Relic. The beta has been delayed, but finally it's on its way. It will be coming out on the 2nd of April. That's a Tuesday. In the beta, you will have access to multiplayer and skirmish modes, giving you access to 6 maps, 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, and 4v4. They will have a ranking system, so you'll have access to the first 40 levels of progression, and the ability to customize your loadouts to suit your playstyle, so bringing in some of the features that they've implemented from their experience from Company of Heroes Online, while still keeping the core Company of Heroes experience. And then a few weeks after that, they will open it up to people who have gained keys from Eurogamer and other gaming conventions, and then hopefully later on, I think they've said that they'll bring out an open beta. And that's the Company of Heroes 2 beta announcement.
Okay. Second of all, the Battlefield 4 trailer, which has just been announced. And it, I have to admit, after seeing the trailer, I looked pretty impressed with it. So, what are your thoughts on this, guys? Have you seen the trailer? Do you feel there's any similarities to the third game?
Looks a little too much alike It's around 2 years after the release of Battlefield 3, so I would personally have expected something that looks a lot more different, but this to me looks like more like a single player DLC. Sure, there's some, there's been some improvements on parts of the game, but it looks, I don't know, I'm almost a bit disappointed. The big jump between Battlefield 2 and Battlefield 3 was, immense, but this is, I don't know.
What in an interview I watched on Machinima, what one of the developers was talking about was that they had a massively for Battlefield 3, the development was mainly focused on technology. They didn't really focus about the experience or how they utilized the technology that they developed, because they developed the engine and the game at the same time. And now that they've split the development of games and the engine apart, they can really focus on the experience. And I think that Battlefield 4 is utilizing the technology that they built for Battlefield 3 in a much smarter way and trying to make it a much more immersive experience than they did with Battlefield 3. So I think your point that the graphics don't look as... that the leap isn't as large from Battlefield 2 to Battlefield 3, there are some reasons why there isn't as big a leap as you might have hoped.
I think this is more of an evolutionary sort of gaming development rather than a revolutionary one, which arguably 3 was compared to, I guess Bad Company and obviously Battlefield 2. So it seems like, maybe graphics will stay the same, but hopefully that means they've got more time to spend on better gaming modes, hopefully a better single player campaign, things like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, here's another question: is with the release trailer of Battlefield 4 being, in a sense, you could say, so soon after the release of the third one, do you fear that the company that they're going down may be going down the same route that Call of Duty went, where it went from like, for example, when Call of Duty Modern Warfare came out, it was a revolutionary idea, but then eventually, after the course of a number of years, now it's just turned into a really poor quality game with just constant DLC releases and...
Well, we do have to remember that it's been about a year and a half since the original release of Battlefield 3. Of course, they spent a lot of time developing from the Bad Company series and Battlefield 2 on Battlefield 3, but that was mainly building Frostbite, improving the Frostbite engine from the ground up, and it will turn into, well, with Battlefield 4, it's turned into a 2-year development cycle. Now, 2 years, if a developer uses those 2 years wisely, we've seen lots of games coming out with 2-year development cycles and have been really fun to play. Call of Duty does have a 2-year development cycle because of the individual developers, though we don't see much changes in those games. But I think DICE, being the developing company it is, can really make Battlefield 4 a good game.
Fair enough, fair enough. What are your opinions on this, Rex? So have you seen the trailer, or have you...
Well, I'm not a very big Battlefield fan, because I'm not a very big first-person, online first-person shooter fan, but, I mean, when the Battlefield 3 videos come on GameDecider, I watch them just for the fun of things blowing up, and from the tiny bits I've seen of the trailer, there's not a lack of that, so I don't know. I can't really ask my opinion on it. It looks like a good game, and I have heard that the trailer is just single player. So I'm assuming that they're putting a lot of work in the single player. Unlike Call of Duty, well, Call of Duty sort of puts quite a bit into the single player, but not as much as the multiplayer, which is very recycled. But even so, the single player aspect of the game it doesn't look that bad.
Yeah, I think DICE have really nailed multiplayer in their previous titles, so I think that we can allow them to focus on the single player. If they're taking the formula of Battlefield 3, Battlefield 2, and some stuff from Bad Company and implementing that, their tried and tested formula of multiplayer, and then pushing the boundaries on single player. If they can do that, that would be brilliant.
Fingers crossed that does work then, eh? Okay, on to the next subject then. As some of you may have heard, Rome 2 has recently announced a new faction. This is the Egyptian faction. Rumors are spreading that there might be another secret faction or the DLC factions. I personally think there's another secret faction that might be released as either a pre-order thing or something if you pay just a few extra pounds more. However, I was going to ask a question. In your experiences of previous Total War games, because many of you have played all of them, do you feel that Rome 2 has any major improvements over any previous Total War games?
Well, I think obviously a large part of it is them sticking to the sort of tried and tested Total War formula. That's what has made the series award-winning and kind of captivated fans with these games, because there's still nothing really that, well, personally I don't feel there's anything that comes close to it. When you had the King Arthur games come out a couple of years ago, some people likened them to Total War, but I still don't think that they had a touch on what Total War brings to sort of the RTS and turn-based strategy hybrid formula. I think you've got obviously a lot of emphasis is on like the graphical changes with Rome 2. They've got a reworked engine. They're still technically, as far as I know, using Warscape, but it's being kind of rebuilt from the ground up, essentially to kind of work with the time period and also what they want to kind of push forward with Rome 2 in that setting. I think some of the biggest things that I'm looking forward to is kind of the continual development of naval battles. Essentially they're nowhere near as kind of old or kind of part of the formula of Total War games as land battles. They've been around since 2009 with Empire Total War. But I really think that Rome 2, this will give them a chance to really focus a lot more on making them entertaining and kind of these epic events. And then kind of, I think for the first proper time, they tried it out a little bit with Fall of the Samurai of integrating land and naval battles. But I think the integration that they're going with now, where you can have kind of beach landings and then unload your armies, and that kind of close relationship between ships and and armies is going to be a really interesting feature, along with the tactical map that they're developing, so you can have that kind of God on high sort of perception and view of the battlefield, and perhaps even control your units from it.
Yeah, I have to admit, I did see that during the beta playing gameplay in Carthage. And I was a bit worried about it, to be honest, because if you had a massive map like that, I don't know, I'd kind of feel that it would kind of defeat the purpose of tactical gameplay in some respects, because if you've got this massive satellite view of the battlefield, if anyone's trying to sneak around you or do a surprise maneuver, it might, in a sense, damage the capabilities for any tactical maneuvering, because as soon as someone glances over to their massive satellite view, it might, it might detect people, and therefore by ruins for supplies.
As far as I know, the tactical map view will reflect exactly what you can see on the battlefield. And another key development that they're bringing in for Rome 2 is kind of the line of sight, and I guess to a degree fog of war, that and terrain's going to play a lot more kind of bigger factor in that. That if your army and your general on the ground can't see an enemy approaching, you won't be able to see it. So I would assume, in kind of fairness of not making it a complete sort of cheat almost to use the tactical map will reflect accurately what you can see on the kind of the ground level with your unit. So I think that will be the balance to, you can view it, because essentially it's going to be more of, I would reckon, a glorified mini map that you've got in the existing games, but with a few more options for control and macro management up there in the clouds, as it were.
I don't like that idea of line of sight. I think one of the greatest things about Total War is that you can act upon what the enemy is doing in a very strategical strategy sense. So having Fog of War, although it gives it that element of what's happening behind there, it's not really something I would personally like to see.
I'm certain there's like maybe different ways to have the camera, so you could perhaps have it as optimized settings, or maybe have it in the choice of like custom games and all that. I mean, Diplex, what do you think about the Rome 2? Like, what features, from what you've seen from the features, do you think Rome 2 will be a better game for it, or?
Yeah, I'm really liking what I've seen this far, and that's what Lionheart said about the whole bringing in the naval battles to bigger perspective is what I'm looking forward to, and hopefully seeing like invasions should be a bigger part of the game. Seeing as in the previous games you just unloaded your army and there wasn't any pressure from the nearby enemy armies. So to have some sort of landing aspects where you would have to send in your ships while under fire from catapults and everything would be awesome to see. But yeah.
I think there was. I just thought of another. Sorry, you first.
I was just going to ask Diplex, what do you think about the increase of scale in terms of unit sizes and the number of units you can have in an army, for instance on multiplayer and in single player? How do you think that's going to affect how people play the game?
It's all going to depend on the map sizes, because I'm a big fan of the mods that allow you to use 40 unit cards in Empire and Napoleon, for an example. And the problem when you use more units is that it removes the tactical aspect, because then I could just cover the entire map with some legionary cohorts and then just march forward. There wouldn't be any flanking possibilities unless they're aiming to make twice the large maps. Then I'm just gonna look at it as just a bigger, better thing. But unless they change the whole thing overall, having more units is gonna, to me, feel a bit unnecessary, and it's gonna remove part of the tactical aspects.
Speaking on large units, though, what kind of I'm hoping is what kind of worries me is, because obviously the amount of detailed in the units might be that if you have a good enough PC, you can see individual faces. Do any of you guys fear the potential opposite could happen, where there's so much detail on units that it may force some computers to downsize, or in some cases sometimes have to have like a lower by average medium size units? Or do you feel that?
I think that's of an inherent part of the Total War series, that you do kind of have to have a relatively powerful computer to enjoy kind of the full-scale battles. But what Creative Assembly have kind of tried to focus on and sort of state is that they're aiming for no higher minimum specifications than those that they had for Shogun 2. So it should hopefully be a case of if you can run Shogun 2, you can run Rome 2. You know, it might be on the lowest settings, but I mean, there has been, I mean, from my own playing, a noticeable improvement in performance from, say, Empire to Shogun 2. I can see the difference, and hopefully at some point we will see kind of better use and integration of multi-core support for these games, which will obviously help sort of lower-end machines that have multi-core processors and maybe just struggle a little bit on the graphics card front. But I think there's ways of combating them. Again, using some mods can even help to tweak your settings. I think a lot of it is about understanding which settings you can afford to downgrade and still keep relatively good visual quality, but giving yourself quite a substantial boost in FPS to play those larger battles.
Indeed. Yeah, because I've found it to be quite enjoyable to. I mean, when I was before I got my graphics card, like my new graphics card, I struggled quite severely on Empire. Like, it was Empire in the short was quite ugly for me when I was trying to get it to work. So it would be kind of nice if Rome would have some kind of feature which would allow us to have that. So sounds cool.
But with the continuous development of hardware, lower end graphics cards will hopefully become cheaper. Medium end graphics card will hopefully become cheaper, and the greater number of people at medium low end settings of old Total War games can upgrade their PCs so they can play medium and high graphics on Rome. Because I've spoken to a lot of my friends, and most of them will be upgrading specifically for Rome 2. So they upgraded their PCs for Empire, and then they'll upgrade their PCs for Rome 2.
Well, if you're always struggling, there is the NVIDIA Titan.
For £1,000.
Yeah, that should definitely run Rome 2, I'd have thought, if you've got that kind of money.
Yeah, just.
But I'm getting a lot of people on sort of my YouTube channel asking me what do I recommend for Rome 2 upgrading now, and my biggest recommendation is wait. Because you never know, CA might pull off a miracle and be able to get sort of really good optimized scalability with Rome 2. You never know. I'd say until we can see some sort of benchmarks and some setting tests, you wait, and also technology is going to be advancing. We may even see the NVIDIA 700 series by the time Rome 2 comes out, sort of October time.
I think they were going to jump onto a different type of series now. That's why they ended one with just Titan, not a 780 or anything like that.
Ah, right.
I heard, yeah. But as what you said, I totally agree. And it's funny because with Empire, Napoleon runs better than Empire on the highest settings for me. So just because we move forward doesn't mean that it's going to be more demanding, because they'll only find more ways to optimize it.
Exactly.
And so it might even run better than Shogun for some. Who knows? But
you'll be able to run it on Windows 95.
Yeah.
Have they stopped support for XP?
I think so.
Probably.
They did at Shogun 2, yeah.
Right.
I think I might need to get worried, because if they're stopping it for XP, it won't be too long before they get rid of Vista. I'm running a 32-bit as well, so it's like,
One point I want to put with Rome 2, I was sort of looking in the back, and a lot of the things they've been showing us is mostly in-game battles and overview of battles, and not really a lot about the campaign map. It'd be nice to know more about the campaign map.
I'd also like to find out if they're trying to introduce any more multiplayer modes, not just the conventional battles.
I remember someone telling me that they weren't going to implement free-for-alls, which I was very disappointed with.
It's a shame about that. I mean, I sadly haven't participated in any of the old original Rome ones, but I know from watching videos of Diplex and of Prince of Macedon and Heir of Carthage that multiplayer like that was pretty good. I'm totally a noob at multiplayer in Rome, so.
I think some team-based cooperative gameplay for multiplayer, although with other older Total Wars, you could do cooperative multiplayer, as in playing the campaign or playing with friends against other opponents. What about bringing in some objective-based gameplay? I know they had capture certain locations on a map in Shogun 2, but they could take that a step further by having maybe multiple defensive positions, like mini forts or something.
Like
in a
have a
multiplayer
King
map.
of the Hill.
King of the Hill, capture the flag. I know
Will be this like in battle on the actual battlefield, or would you have it in the campaign map? Because that would be kind of cool.
Well, I think you could do both, but I think they really need to. Although the core formula that we've talked about before is really good for multiplayer and single player, I think they need to.
They have the room to expand it.
I think people have been calling. I know I have for King of the Hill or some capture the flag gameplay. Not necessarily capture the flag, but maybe capture a convoy of goods, a few carts with some gold in or something.
Kidnap the general.
Something like that.
I don't know, because if you start, I don't think it would be too much of a good thing, because if you start putting loads of fancy styles of gameplay, yeah, you'll be able to expand the variety in the thing, but then you're kind of killing the aspect of what Total War was all about, which was quite simply, I've got an army, you've got an army, let's duke it out and see who survives. I mean, don't get me wrong, King of the Hill would be quite an interesting thing, but then technically we've already got that with sieges, so if people wanted to cap a place, then go on to Shogun and go the castle, or go on to Rome Total War and cap a castle like that. But I think stuff like capture the flag or capture the general would kind of, I mean, this is my opinion, but I just think that would kind of kill the aspect of Rome Total War, which originally was.
I think that although the original aspect of the game is like really important, it's also been used so much that they have the room to expand, because they know that it works, and a lot of people will play that no matter what else they bring in. But they have the room to expand it more, and although it's moving, we can't really say it's moving away. It's sort of evolving a bit, like how Battlefield 4 is an evolution of Battlefield 3 to a certain extent. They're sort of evolving the gameplay for it to be sort of an improvement.
I can see where you're coming from on that. I don't know. It's one of those things which is a bit like getting a bit nervous when they try and implement something new, especially in recent times. So is that good enough? Would you say that's? Has everyone said their fill?
Are there any features that Creative Assembly haven't mentioned, and that you guys think should be in a Total War game that maybe in other games?
A little point of discussion was the implementation of either religion or culture. Like, which one do you think would be better in Rome 2? Do you think there should be a religion aspect to the game, like there has been in all previous, the latest previous Total Wars, or instead of having religion, you should have culture, like you'd have Roman culture, Celtic culture, or Eastern culture?
That wouldn't be a bad idea, actually. Because then you could, like, in a sense, the question would be, how would you have that? Like, for example, with religious people, so religion, you had the priest to go over to them and incite revolts. Because I'm imagining they're going to have similar agents like that to Rome 2 as they've had in Shogun. So, what do you think about this, Diplex or Lionheart?
Yeah, I like the. I mean, you didn't have any priests or whatever in Empire or Napoleon. You might wait. I can't remember exactly. Did you have them in Empire? But I'm pretty sure that...
Yeah, I don't think they were made as much of a difference. I remember because I used to have mine kept.
You had monks in Shogun 2.
Yeah,
well,
they removed a lot of. They removed a lot of
Empire.
the agents in the later games, or the latter games, should I say? But it's. I hope they bring back agents, and you know that you have to travel with the diplomat to the others at least. And the religious aspect would be cool, because if you're Roman and you capture like a whatever, like an Eastern settlement, you know, they're not going to be too content with that. And
what I was thinking of is because I know both of you play Third Age and have played it for quite a while, and that's sort of, you need to get a certain culture level before getting certain troops. So So say if you're Mordor and taking over Gondor, you need to get it a certain Mordor culture to get all like the trolls and things. So do you think that they should implement that in the Total War in Rome 2?
I think it gives you kind of something to strive for, and to it gives a bit of structure to what you build, and you have to think carefully of what you build in sort of which order. I think it's going to be interesting to see, because I know with the Roman faction, they're talking about this different kind of political or sort of kind of not career paths, but different choices you can make, so that each time you play as Rome, because obviously the original Rome had the 3 different sort of Roman families duking it out for power. They've kind of sort of said you can separate yourself by following kind of different. I don't know if it's political routes, or I think it's maybe you can follow one that's more political.
It's political, cultural, or military.
Military, yeah. So I assume each of those have their own inherent sort of bonuses. So the military, you'll be able to get slightly better units faster, I'd assume. Whereas the economic, maybe you've got better, faster trade ships, and you can earn more from trade, or your roads can carry your men further, or something like that. And then the social one will have, culture bonuses or something like that for increased population or things. So I think things like that may kind of give that aspect of culture bonus and get a bit of different structure for what each city or each faction plays like, and I assume there'll be similar sort of career path options, as it were, for the other factions too.
Do you think? Sorry. Do you think that because in Shogun 2 you saw the upgrade, the sort of research tree was based on what was it, economic and military? Do you think that that's what they meant by having 3 different paths? You would have one research tree which is military, one economic, and then one cultural.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting to see where they go with it, because you've kind of had that different sort of research tree, as it were, from Empire, really. So I think it's going to be interesting whatever we see with that kind of the development of each faction on the campaign map. And as you guys said, it'll be interesting to see what sort of agents, and whether they choose culture over religion, or whether they try and implement both, perhaps, that sort of you have agents for religion and similar agents for culture, or there's different things that affect sort of both of those.
Lionheart, I've got a question for you. With how Creative Assembly are trying to reduce the number of battles, individual battles, but they're trying to increase substantial battles. So in Rome 1, in the campaign, let's say you were playing as Julii, you used to send out maybe a general, a cavalry unit, and a few units of soldiers at the start of your campaign to go and capture a few little outposts controlled by rebels. How do you think Creative Assembly are going to change the starting of the campaign from having small battles to having this large historical substantial battles that they're trying to get into the single player?
Well, I think you'll still have, the odd few skirmishes, but I think in this way they are trying to make it kind of a bit more representational of kind of how battles occurred. You did have, the odd skirmish, but most of the times it was battles were eventually forced to be kind of pitched affairs, sort of thing. So that's why you have these huge battles. But the emphasis, I think, as well, is what they're trying to do is so that you have to look after your full stack army. Once you have that full stack, I think the emphasis in Rome 2 is that if you lose that, you are screwed, essentially, if the enemy can counterattack. It's not like you can suddenly build another full stack within 2 turns and you're good again. I think the emphasis is really going to be on taking care of your units, and there's going to be kind of apparently veterancy on the campaign map, similarly to how you have it in multiplayer, not as perhaps maybe overpowered in some certain aspects, but you'll be able to kind of customize some of your units so that you don't want to lose X legion or whatever it is. That is your legion you've had from the start, sort of thing, that you've built up to be a melee or missile specialist sort of regiment. So I think that you might have you'll have probably your small individual skirmishes for maybe outposts and things, but it'll be more a case of you soon realise you either have to give up that small settlement so you can bring up your large army and then fight a pitched battle or siege or something, as the emphasis seems to be, and also the Creative Assembly working in this new territory system as well, where there's various capture points, as it were. Even on the campaign map, you have to capture sort of various parts to then claim the whole region. So I think there's going to be kind of that mix of both small and grand battles, but it will mean far more when you get to one of these big battles, because you'll have to be more careful with your units, because you won't be able to suddenly, pump out 4 more full stack armies in several turns.
Well, many thanks for that answer. Now, Diplex, I understand that you're from the other games you play, like Manta Blade Warband, Napoleonic Wars, you're very into the Napoleonic and kind of that
the
time
Napoleonic
period.
era, exactly.
Yeah,
1790 to 1820, around that.
Yeah. And also the other games you play are very range-based, modern weapons, as it were. How do you feel you and other people like you are going to transition themselves to Rome 2? Because I know quite a lot of people didn't like Shogun 2 because it was hand-to-hand combat.
Exactly.
Whereas they previously did like the Medieval 2 and Rome 1, but they didn't like Shogun 2. How do you think that's going to work?
Well, personally, I transitioned quite quickly, and I'm a fan of all eras, but a lot of people have their play style. They play completely differently with melee, based units and ranged based units. I think, I don't know. It depends on. I don't think people are gonna have a hard time transitioning. I myself enjoy both things. Everything that's Total War, and that's good on my standards. But well, sorry, can you rephrase that question? How I'm tactically gonna feel about it, or the whole era that I'm gonna not be seeing any ranged muskets anymore, or
mainly
stuff
era,
like that?
because I think that the reason why people didn't like Shogun 2 on the most part was that it was Japanese history.
Yeah, exactly, and old samurais and all that. Well, personally, I didn't mind. I thought it was great fun. And when Fall of the Samurais got announced, that's 1860s, and to me that was just very welcome. And I played way more Fall of the Samurai than I've played the regular vanilla Shogun, and I've also played way more Napoleon and Empire than I've ever played Rome and Medieval, even though those games have been out for a way longer time. So to me, I think Rome will be great, but I don't know if it'll remain for in my heart for a longer time. I'll probably play it and enjoy it, but you never know if modding becomes more of a well, how does it look on the modding front?
I was about to ask that question, mostly directed towards you, since you're doing a Romus Rectum 2 campaign right now. Do you think that with Rome 2 coming out, there'll be a return to all these Rome Total War mods that you would see, like, say, maybe a Romus Rectum 3, or a Europa Bava Rorum 3 or something?
Or a Darth mod.
If there's Darth mod won't be returning, I think I all know that. But
yeah,
I'm pretty sure that. Well, to be entirely honest, I don't know if it's going to be necessary. I thought like Empire it lacked so many things because I'm into the whole time era and everything. I could notice so many things that I thought was just historically incorrect and everything. But with Shogun, me not having any sort of pre-knowledge of the whole era or anything, I barely know anything about the samurais or the wars. I thought that was just a good overall game, and it didn't need any mods to make it that much better. And I think the mods that they made for Shogun and for the Samurai and all that were the mods that changed the least of all. I mean, there's mods for Empire that changed completely everything, along with Medieval, but the mods that came out for Shogun weren't as changing, and I don't know. We'll see if it's necessary. I doubt though, but
they did release the mod tools quite late though.
Yeah.
So the game had already lost its release title popularity. So if I'm not sure, Lionheart, you might have to correct me, but are they releasing mod tools on launch?
Nothing's been announced for it. I doubt there will be mod tools on launch. It will be something that they will hopefully, look into doing later on post-release. But going back to kind of when Craphunter was saying about return to the big, large sort of overhaul mods of Rome. While we'll still get things, I would assume, like Rome's Rector and, obviously seems no Darth mod, but kind of similar sort of stat changing mods and tweaks and things. We'll get a lot of them, but since the Warscape engine sort of being released with Empire, that has unfortunately removed the capabilities to edit a lot of the kind of
their core
the map.
stuff.
Well, actually, that's wrong. Rather, it's not removed the ability completely, because modders have actually been able to change some of the aspects on the Shogun 2 maps. They've managed to change some of the colors and textures over. It's that the tools that we had, or rather that were created for pre-Empire Total War games, don't work, because the Warscape engine has a lot more of these features hard-coded into the engine, such as the campaign map. So things like a Third Age mod for Rome 2, potentially, if sort of modders could get their way around the Warscape engine and the new way that the map coding is done, then potentially they could one day do it. But it's never going to be as easy as it was in those sort of pre-Empire days. But you never know. I mean, they can still obviously create new custom models for units. So it might be a Third Age sort of European sort of conflict for now, because we can put the units in, we can essentially add new factions in, but we can't change the map just yet. Maybe that will change. Maybe, I mean, the Creative Assembly did release a huge amount of data code for
Shogun,
for Empire and Napoleon, and there was some for Shogun as well. And that's allowed a lot more kind of effective stat changes to units and model tweaks. I mean, we can. I've used the Bayonet mod for Fall of the Samurai, which replaces the animations of various units and adds the bayonet model in, and uses Yari Samurai animations. So we can do quite a lot to units. It's just the map is kind of the stumbling block, really, to return to those complete overhauls. If we could do that, which potentially, if a modder can get his head around the coding system, we could see a return to the sort of the great age of modding.
Do you think that Creative Assembly should actually, like, when they make a Total War game, they should sort of have that ability to change the map built in, like, sort of for modders? Because a lot of success of, say, the only reason that a lot of people have Medieval 2 now is to play Third Age. I know this because that's one of the reasons I've got the game. And do you think that Creative Assembly should, like, have that sort of ability to change the map? Not like, yes, you should buy this game just to change the map, but have that ability to be easier.
I think it's, they've got to weigh up what they want to achieve with producing a new game against, how much time can they set aside then kind of redesigning or tweaking the engine so that it's accessible for modders. I think, I mean, from what I've seen, Creative Assembly have always been very kind of good with their community. They've tried to kind of explain their reasons for moving away from accessibility for modding, or they've tried to promote certain aspects which they like. I mean, they have out of their own time and their own pocket produced the TED map editor. So I mean, that's a step in the right direction. I think that if as long as their games continue to sell well, I'm sure it will spark kind of their interest in seeing what more they can do to produce some mod tools. I mean, they were able to get custom sort of custom battle map editor. There's nothing to say that with their in-house tools, if they had the time perhaps to produce a campaign map editor, an official tool. But again, I think that in itself is quite a large development for them to take on. But it'll see how it goes, really.
Yeah, there's a big difference between like what people see as like public tools that you can go in and like, oh, create new map and like save map to game, like add city, like most of these tools. I mean, most modders today, and I myself have tried and played around with the database manager for the Total War games, so I can change the stats and the morale and ultimately change the skins and models and everything and all the sounds that are being used in game. But I mean, when people like look at modding tools, I wonder if they're imagining something that's like grammatically pretty or like graphically pretty and easy to use, or if it's some hard-coded like basic tools that the developers themselves would have their hands on to develop the game. Because yeah,
Probably along those lines.
yeah.
One question that I was wondering, because of our return to Total War Rome, do you believe from the trailers that you've seen and from the information that we've discovered, do you believe that we may yet see the importance of the Senate return? So, for example, how we kept getting missions from the Senate and how we had to become popular enough to overrun the Senate. Do you feel that that will return, or do you feel there might be some different objectives?
I think with the Roman period, the Senate is always going to be an important feature, and perhaps it will be kind of like a return to the Pope and the kind of crusading elements of you have to have enough popularity with him to gain certain missions or things like that, and you're always given missions within the Total War games to try and strive and achieve to. So I would have thought that it's quite likely that we'll see the Senate in some form or another.
I think being a good feature that would be possibly quite interesting would be if you're popular, instead of being so popular that you overthrow the Senate, that maybe the more popular you are, the more bonuses you get to your research or to your military. That would be a good thing, I think.
Yeah, because also then you could kind of add a challenge aspect, because the more popular you are with your people, the more suspicious the Senate gets. So it's a bit like, so now, instead of allowing, so like, in a sense, you could kind of have perks to one area, a bit like the modernization thing. The more modern you become, although you'll get advantages to your troop deployments and how fast you can build them and how cheap it will be, you'll also have problems like how much, I don't know, tribute you get, or how often you'll get liked by the Senate, because obviously they can see that you're probably eyeing them up to see which ones you want to let live. All right then. So that was that. So thank you very much for joining us, Diplex and Lionheart, Exasol and Decider.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks for having us.
And this has been the Game Decider podcast, announced with all the fancy pantsy stuff on Company of Heroes. And hope to see you guys soon. This is Craphunter signing out.